Well, hi, everybody. I'm Don Stewart, and welcome to our second edition of Breaking News for this Monday. It is the 8th day of September, 2025, and we do have a response now from Hamas with respect to Donald Trump's proposal. And you probably guessed what it is. They're not going to receive it. They're not going to abide by it. They're going to reject it. In other words, something that really is the no-brainer of the century. That's our top story. We'll look into that in a minute. This is from the Jerusalem Post. The headline is Hamas casts doubt on Trump-backed deal, says hostages won't be released on the first day. In other words, no deal. They're not going to accept it. And Trump says this was your last chance. Now, this shows why it's their last chance and why they should have accepted it. In our next story from Israel National News, Benjamin Netanyahu today said in the last 3 days, we've taken down 50 terrorist high rises in Gaza. 50 of them have been wiped out in the last couple of days. And so the war continues. Now, we're going to shift gears in with two stories about technology because one of our signs of the end, sign number 15 of our 25 signs, is the exponential increase in technology in the last days. And two stories really fit with what this sign is. The first is AI-backed deepfake impersonations are getting harder to detect. The FBI warns us in the Epoch Times. We've talked about deepfakes before, where someone is impersonating somebody else, and they're getting more sophisticated where you really, in many instances, can't tell the difference. They're that good, and it's going to get more difficult to detect the fakes here. And then this one is really, really huge. SpaceX buys $17 billion in EchoStar spectrum to supercharge the Starlink direct to cell. And basically, that's telling us that soon everybody in the world will be able to be wired up with the technology. So anywhere, any place in the world, people can receive messages direct to their cell phones. And instead of won't even need a satellite dish anymore. And this is coming sooner rather than later. In the next few years, it'll be a realization. And it basically fulfills what we've talked about before. There's three different passages in the book of in the New Testament we're going to refer to. We're going to refer you to under sign 15, how that fits all that, something we've been expecting to happen, something for years people couldn't imagine how it could happen. But now we don't have to imagine. We have the evidence right here in front of us. It's an amazing time to be alive, isn't it? Well, let's get to these stories, okay? Headline number one, Hamas casts doubt on Trump-backed deal, says hostages wouldn't be released on the first day of the truce. The Jerusalem Post. It's funny, one commentator from the story said, you can say this all in one line, Hamas rejects the deal. And that's basically what it is. And here's what it says. The Qatar Prime Minister has pressed Hamas leaders to respond positively to the later U.S. proposed plan during talks in Doha on Monday. An official briefed on talks told Reuters. Hamas on Monday addressed the new U.S.-backed hostage ceasefire proposal conveyed through Israeli negotiator Gershon Baskin and Dr. Bashar Abbas, saying that there are several roadblocks that need to be addressed to reach a deal, sources from the terror group told Ashwaq al-Assad on Monday. Qatar Prime Minister reportedly pressed the leaders to respond positively to this, but Hamas said sources say the proposal presented with them contains many traps and pitfalls that need to be dismantled, adding they are focused on a deal that would end the war. Well, this deal would end the war. You have to lay your arms down. You have to give up the hostages, and you have to, basically leave Gaza. And so and realize that you're not going to be in control. The terror group added it would be difficult to release several hostages on the first day, as some hostages were killed in locations where the IDF would have to halt fire in order to extract them from under the rubble in areas where they were killed or from places where they were buried after Israeli forces entered, the periodical reported. According to Hamas sources, the current discussions do not mention Israeli withdrawal from critical corridors, that's the Philadelphia corridor, or reopening the Rafah crossing. The terrorist group added that they are seeking guarantees to reach the war's end, backed by guarantor countries such as the U.S. Well, Donald Trump gave that guarantee. Here's the thing: lay down your arms, give us the hostages today, all of them, release the bodies and the live hostages, and Israel will stay in place where they're at right now. We'll negotiate a final settlement, but in this final settlement, you have to leave. You have to withdraw. You lay down your arms. You're going to leave Gaza. You won't be in control anymore. And of course, they're going to reject that. So we are not surprised by this. But again, Trump said, this is your last chance. I'm not going to give you another chance. This is your last warning. And so there we have it. Now, along this line, Benjamin Netanyahu, according to headline number two in Israel National News, said we've taken down 50 terrorist high rises. Addressing the battle against Hamas in Gaza, I am here at the Air Force Command Center. A few days ago, I promised you we would bring down the terrorist high rises in Gaza. This is exactly what we're doing. Now, get this, in the last 2 days, 50 such high rises have fallen. The Air Force took them down. Now, all of this is only the introduction, only the beginning of the main intensive operation, the ground incursion of our forces. They're now getting organized and gathering into Gaza City. Therefore, I'm taking this opportunity to say to the residents of Gaza, listen to me carefully. You have been warned. Get out of there, Netanyahu warned. All right, so they are going forward, and no negotiations are going to be held. No deal is going to be made. Basically, Netanyahu and Israel is going to clear these murderers out of Gaza City and make it a peaceful place for the future for the people of Israel. So the October 7th massacre, something like that, could never happen again from Gaza. Now, sadly, we know something like that is going to happen again, and it's going to take place with the Russian-led invasion at the time of the end, at some time in the future. And it's going to happen too when Israel feels their northern border, their southern borders are secure, that something like this would never happen or could never happen. And it's somewhere down the line, as we mentioned. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's going to take place as the stage is getting set for it. But in the meantime, there has to be a situation where Gaza is neutralized, like Hezbollah is now neutralized, where the Israelis will believe they're safe on their borders. And they're going to feel that way when this Russian-led invasion takes place. All right, let's get to two stories that have something to do with technology and how it is fitting with respect to the last days. This first one is from Epoch Times. It says AI-backed deepfake impersonations are getting harder to detect, the FBI warns. Increasingly hard to detect deepfake content created with artificial intelligence, AI, is being exploited by criminals to impersonate trusted individuals. The FBI and the American Bankers Association said in a report published September 3rd. In its deepfake media scam infographic, the FBI said scams targeting Americans are surging. Since 2020, now get this, the agency has received more than 4.2 million reports of fraud amounting to $50.5 billion in losses. Imposter scam in particular are on the rise. Criminals are using deep fakes or media that is generated or manipulated by AI to gain your trust and scam you out of your hard-earned money. Deepfake content could include altered images, audio or video. Scammers may pose as family or friends or as public figures, including celebrities, law enforcement, and government officials, it warned. They're becoming increasingly sophisticated and harder to detect, said Sam Kunji, Vice President of the Consumer Education for the ABA Foundation. According to the infographic, certain inconsistencies in the AI-generated material can help detect deepfakes. When it comes to images or videos, people should watch out for blurred or distorted faces, unnatural shadows or lighting, whether audio or video are out of sync, whether the teeth and hair look real, whether the person blinks too little or too much. In case of the audio, people should check whether the voice tone is too flat or unnatural. The infographic listed 3 red flags of a deepfake scam. First, unexpected requests for money or personal information, emotional manipulation involving urgency or fear, and uncharacteristic communication from what appears to be a known individual. To remain safe, ABA and FBI Americans advised Americans to think before responding to emotional or urgent requests. Now, this is a good idea. And create code words or phrases to confirm the identity of loved ones. In other words, you have a code word with your wife, your husband, your kids, grandfather, grandmother, whoever it might be, grandson. In other words, if you get a message supposedly from them, they need to give their code word to you. And that's only something that you and they know. Okay, so it's a great idea to do something like that. The FBI continues to see a troubling rise in fraud reports involving deepfake media, said FBI Criminal Investigation Division Assistant Director Jose Perez. Educating the public about this emerging threat is key to preventing these scams and minimizing their impact. We encourage consumers to stay informed and share what they learn with friends and family so they can spot deepfakes before they do any harm. They said the global impact has hit something like $40 billion or will hit $40 billion in deepfake fraud by 2027. Stolen money is almost never recorded due to rapid laundering through money mule chains and crypto mixers. Fewer than 5% of the funds lost to sophisticated phishing scams are ever recorded. Now, this is one of the sad realities in which we live. We've talked about this, the rise of technology in our book, 25 Signs. We're near the end. There'll be an exponential rise in technology. And so you will not be able to believe many times what you see. Famous people who we know, famous faces, can have deep fakes made about them, showing them falsely committing crimes or saying something contrary to what we know they say. And particularly, we've been talking about this in the past, Christian leaders. Christian leaders, you can deep fake them and make them say something like in a private conversation, like they reject Christ and never really believe the Bible. This is all a scam. These fools are giving us money, things like that. And believe me, that's going to happen. And people, unfortunately, are going to believe this is what is said by these Christian speakers, Christian leaders, pastors, etc. That is one of the worries. And so their credibility will be destroyed, will be lost because these deep fakes seem so real. So be careful when you hear about someone saying something, or a pastor was overheard saying this, or someone in a private conversation said this. Be very, very careful, because this is the future of what we're all going to be facing, the deep fakes. Now, along this line with technology, we have this story, which again is huge. This is from Zero Hedge. SpaceX buys $17 billion in EchoStar spectrum to supercharge Starlink direct to cell. This is from Zero Hedge. Elon Musk SpaceX struck a deal with EchoStar Corporation for 50 megahertz of exclusive U.S. spectrum and global MSS licenses, a move that supercharges its Starlink direct-to-cell service worldwide. This agreement will enable us to develop and deploy our next-generation Starlink direct-to-cell constellation, which will be capable of providing broadband service, to get this, broadband service to cell phones globally, SpaceX wrote in a press release on Monday morning. Our friend Dennis Swick from his channel, Dennis is not on the cutting edge of technology. He's actually on the bleeding edge of technology. Man is an absolute genius. He's a savant. In fact, a number of years ago when I was doing programs with his channel, I had to stop because of my heart attack, and that's why I couldn't do it. But he told me he went to the Las Vegas. They've got this every year, this big conference there with the technology. And they saw his channel, so they pulled him into the booth, the Microsoft people, and said, what's going on? He said, yeah, I showed him a few things. And again, Dennis, there's things we did at his channel when I was there, when Dennis did, that put them in the forefront of technology. Well, here's what he told me when I sent him this story. He said, it's coming together, the global mobile network, in a few years. Every inch of ground under Earth will be covered. Every inch of ground on Earth will be covered. In other words, uh, this, what can be said, what can be pronounced, will be covered by every inch of ground. People can hear it and see it. Now, this fits, again, what we've written about under sign 15 of our 25 signs. We're near the end. We gave 3 examples biblically of the assumption that everybody on earth can see or hear a certain broadcast. Again, Revelation chapter 11, the entire world will watch certain events in real time. The 2 witnesses, we gave you that passage there and gave you about a dozen things we learned from that passage. A second passage, the abomination of desolation is viewed by the entire world. Again, about another 10 or 12 points from that passage. And then finally, the mark of the beast, the worldwide monitoring system. Now, again, each of these 3 passages assumes that the whole world can be connected at one time from, again, the final Antichrist, because the abomination of desolation is, led something he does. The mark of the beast is something that the false prophet does, along with the final Antichrist. The 2 witnesses who are killed are fighting against the final Antichrist. Their bodies are watched for 3.5 days as they lie dead in the streets of Jerusalem. And then as they come back to life and ascend into heaven, the whole world, who has been sending presents like it's a Christmas, because these people have been killed. These 2 witnesses are shocked and frightened to death because of what happens. This is 3 events that the Bible predicts will take place, literal events that are going to happen in the future, but they can only happen when there's a worldwide technology, when everybody on the face of the earth will be able to see it. That's the whole idea. And then the final Antichrist, as we've said also, and the false prophet will make pronouncements, make commands, because they've got the whole world at their fingertips, under their control, under their command. So again, this story is huge because the technology is right here with us right now. So again, it won't be seen until the 3.5 year last 3.5 years, the final 7 year period, the final 7 weeks, 70 weeks of Daniel. It's called the time of Jacob's trouble. The last 3.5 years, called the Great Tribulation. But it's a final 7 year period, according to Daniel 9:24 to 27. But it's the midpoint towards the end where all these things happen. And again, so it's still at least 3.5 years off. And according to what's going on now, this technology will be here before you know it. Amazing time to be alive, isn't it? Anyway, I'm Don Stewart. Thanks for watching. We'll be back tomorrow, Lord willing, with another edition of Breaking News. Until then, as always, may the Lord richly, richly bless.